These young women are training to be part-time soldiers. They will fight in the People's Militia of Cuba, a defense force with a deadly serious task, especially since the US invasion of Grenada. Last year, nearly 2 million women volunteered for training. With Cuba's regular forces, this Caribbean island can muster a fighting machine, men and women, of some 6 million. Cuba's total population is only 10 million. Fidel Castro, Cuba's leader and the commander-in-chief of this army, recently warned President Ronald Reagan, "Whoever tries to conquer Cuba will gain nothing but the dust of her blood-soaked soil if he doesn't perish in the struggle first." A quarter century later, Cuba is still fighting to maintain and to strengthen her revolution. It's that arch-enemy of the revolution, that tool of imperialism, the American GI, these women see in their sights as they blast away with their imaginary bullets. Real rounds of ammunition come expensive with an army of 6 million.
Alto el fuego! Descarguen!
This secret officer training camp in central Cuba is one of 14. Men and women graduate after a 5-month course. They're released from their civilian jobs to come here, and it's regarded as a great honor to be selected. The weapons are Russian, old but well maintained.
Una vez retirado el mecanismo recuperador, pues retiramos lo que es el soporte de cierre, o sea, el mecanismo de cierre que se compone de que
hasta la altura de la línea de fuego, en combate, arriba.
Moscow equips the entire Cuban forces, but the more modern weapons go to the full-time professionals. Russian advisors are also here, but never when our film cameras were around. Today, Cuba sits squeezed between the two superpowers, its friend, the USSR, and its neighbor, the USA, the aggressive ally of one, the sworn enemy of the other.
I am 19 years old. I am training myself for the defense of the homeland. I am 23 years old. And I'm getting ready for the defense of the country.
Bueno, si nos agregan a nuestro país, tendremos que tomar las armas y luchar por esta revolución.
If our country is invaded, we will have to take the weapons and fight for our revolution.
In 1956, Fidel Castro took to the Sierra Maestra hills of southern Cuba. This is where he and his rebel army did some of their military training. Che Guevara and Fidel's brother Raúl were here too, as they taught themselves the art of guerrilla warfare. With practically no weapons, precious little ammunition, and the poorest food and shelter, life was hard. The enemy was Cuba's right-wing dictator, Batista, who had himself seized power in 1952. With American support, Batista managed to occupy the presidential palace for 6 years.
I think he was the first national leader who, especially leader in the third world, who knew how to use television, who knew how to speak to his people at length, often at the beginning in 3- and 4-hour speeches, who educated the Cuban people to his way of thinking, which was radical. And I think there was general will, but I think the general will perhaps was encouraged, was developed by Fidel Castro.
Our people received Fidel with with joy, with happiness, knowing what Fidel signified for our country. For the poor people, signified life, because much manner of poorness and hunger.
In the first year of the revolution in '59, we had friends at the embassy who were trying to persuade us to leave, that it was very dangerous for us to stay here. And they were saying that this was going to be communist. At that time it hadn't declared itself socialist, but that was their feeling about it. And both my husband and I were not very worried about it, for the simple reason that although we knew nothing about Marxism at that point, we felt that, in fact, we said that we had seen capitalism and we didn't think it was so great. It had many problems. And that we thought it might be interesting to see what this was, really. And we decided to stay.
But most Americans fled northwards, an airline hop or a fast ferry. With only 90 miles of sea between the two countries, Cuba is not so much in America's backyard as on the porch right outside the door. Havana has seen better days. It now has a faded grandeur. The Americans who left 25 years ago would find things much the same in the capital today. Even the chrome-laden cars are the gas guzzlers of another age. But behind this 50s facade, one thing does seem to have changed: people's values.
Cubans used to criticize themselves all of the time. They are now completely sure of themselves. They respect themselves. They know what they can do. They know why they are doing what they are doing. And I think not many people in many countries know that. And they know what they want to do in the future. They know the way they want the world to go. They're very self-confident. They have gained that. That's very important.
I think Cuban leaders whom I've spoken to know that in the long run, it's the example of Cuba as a successful nation economically and socially, politically, that will be their greatest strength.
For generations, Cubans have rolled cigars. In makeshift factories like this, little has changed in the style of work since long before the revolution. Factories with names made famous by their private owners, Bolivar, Partagas, and Monte Cristo. Today, they're run by the state, but their product is just as much in demand. The most famous cigar on earth puts the name of Havana in the hands of the wealthy and powerful around the world. Everywhere, that is, except America. For more than 20 years, the USA has had a trade embargo with Cuba, a blockade that keeps all Cuban products, including cigars, out of America, and the American good life out of Cuba. Luxury cigars account for only about 1% of Cuba's foreign trade. Over 80% of it comes from another, far less glamorous crop, sugarcane. Cuba is the biggest sugar exporter in the world. The Cubans call it king sugar. And these men who cut the cane are hailed as heroes of the revolution. In searing heat and stifling humidity, they work 11 hours a day and 6 days a week. Their clothes are permanently soaked with sweat. Cuba's cigar business is flourishing, but her sugar fortunes are in decline. 1983 saw a glut of sugar, and the world market price is at an all-time low. If it were not for the support of the Soviet Union, Cuba's economy would have crashed, along with the falling sugar prices. About half Cuba's sugar crop leaving Havana Harbor goes to the USSR. The Soviet Union is prepared to pay about 7 times the world free market price for Cuban sugar. As part of this same friendship deal, almost all of Cuba's oil comes in from the USSR at a specially reduced rate. Tankers ply halfway around the world and unload 250,000 barrels of crude oil a day at Havana's refinery.
I think it could be objectively proven that this revolution would not have survived if it hadn't been for the USSR. For whatever reasons the USSR might have had in supporting Cuba, the Cuban Revolution could not have survived. I think this is very important to a person like Fidel Castro and to the Cuban revolutionaries. The price of sugar on the world market, crude sugar, is 6.5 to 7 cents today, well below cost production price. However, the Soviet Union today is paying them 50 cents a pound. They're giving them their oil since 1960 for half the world price. They sell them equipment, they give them arms, and so on. Now, if you want to look at Cuba in terms of world politics, of global politics, then you would see it in those terms, that Cuba is a client state of the Soviet Union and is a danger to the United States. However, if you want to look at it from a third world point of view, you can say that this is a government which has been able to survive its difficult financial moments, as it's passing through now, when its foreign reserves have gotten below $100 million a year, and is still able to feed its people, still able to keep beggars off the street, still able to give public health care and education to its people, something which most third world countries cannot boast of.
In fact, most developed countries would find it hard to compete with Cuba's health service. It is one of the great success stories of the revolution. Healthcare is free, apart from the cost of medicines. Since 1959, life expectancy has gone up, the infant mortality rate down. TB and smallpox, common before the revolution, are now rare. Another great triumph of the revolution has been education. But although more people can now read, what they read is strictly controlled. There is no free press. Newspapers, magazines, and books, although plentiful, are government-controlled. The state also regulates many other areas of life. Cubans can't move their home or job without official permission. There are no trade unions as we know them. Television and radio say only what officialdom allows. No opportunity is ever given to any voice of dissent. Those who don't like it are not even free to leave. This airline is one of the few official ways out of Cuba. America is the obvious destination, but there are no scheduled flights between the two countries. Next best is a flight to Costa Rica. Posted in the airline window each month is a government list selected from those who apply to leave. The list usually has about 80 names on it. These are the ones who are free to leave on the 2.5-hour flight south. Tiny Costa Rica is the smallest country in Central America and the only one with no army. 750 miles further away from the USA than Cuba, it's very close to the United States politically and economically. It is from the capital, San Jose, that Cuban exiles apply to enter the USA, but there is absolutely no guarantee they'll be accepted. Only Cubans over 65 have any freedom to come and go. If they're any younger and feel the revolution is not for them, they must pick their way through a fine web of Cuban red tape. About 1 million have left over the last 25 years. The most spectacular exodus was the most recent. In April 1980, 10,000 Cubans rushed the fence of the Peruvian embassy in Havana and camped out. They refused to leave the grounds and demanded to be sent to the United States. When President Carter declared he would accept them, President Castro agreed to let them go. Despite the defections, the majority are quite happy with life in Cuba. There are empty supermarket shelves, but no one seems to go hungry as they do in other third world countries. Dairy products, meat, fish and chicken are mostly Cuban, but these are supplemented by a whole range of goods shipped in from Eastern Europe. Bulgarian stuffed peppers, bottled cherries, Russian dried milk and pickled cabbage. Ration books have become a way of life in Cuba. Food has been rationed for the past 22 years. Petrol and clothing are rationed too. Each adult can have 2 pairs of shoes a year. Women get 1 bra and 1 pair of knickers each 6 months. 3 bars of soap are allowed every 2 months. 1 packet of cigarettes each week. A new experience for Cubans is this free market shop, where ration books are not required. It's Havana's newest store. The shelves are well stocked and there is a choice of goods. The only problem is getting in. The queue begins early in the morning, but the store doesn't open until the afternoon. Thousands of people stand for hours in the heat of the day just to get in. Armed guards keep control. This is one of the few scenes the Cubans did not want us to film.
Yes, it's a very good store. They have olives, sausages, meat of all kinds, pork, beef, all types of citrus fruit. There are also bananas, coconuts, and oranges.
I've come to buy cakes for my son to eat in the fields. Preservatives, juices, and my shopping for the rest of the week to satisfy our needs. I've been here 4 times.
I've come to buy tobacco and a bottle of rum. Here they have things not available elsewhere. Certain brands of drink and good quality tobacco.
What's on offer in this Harrods of Havana goes far beyond what one can buy with a ration book. An adult food ration includes a pound of sugar and an ounce of coffee a week, 2 tins of tomato sauce a month, a quarter of a pound of black beans a week, and just over a pound of rice. With the meat ration at half a pound a week, it's easy to see why there are grabbing hands when faced with whole legs of pork.
No, este es mío, viejo, oye, este es mío, que te lo pedí a ella. No, este es
25 years of revolution have undoubtedly left most Cubans better off. But it is still an isolated island, suspicious of its superpower neighbor, particularly so since the US invasion of Grenada. Cuba's army is too large to contain with home maneuvers. Cuba has troops abroad, in many of the world's trouble spots: Angola, Ethiopia, Mozambique, and the Congo, in Libya, South Yemen, and Nicaragua. And at home, they're ever watchful, defensive. 25 years into the revolution, Fidel Castro is still warning his people about the evils of the imperialist Yankees.
How many men would imperialism require to occupy Cuba? 5 million soldiers would not be enough to face the hundreds of thousands, or even more, millions of combatants, tens of thousands of well-prepared and resolute officers and men, fighting on their own soil under one flag against a hateful foreign aggression which would destroy our revolution and our country. Once their soldiers are here, together with ours, their nuclear weapons, the dozens of divisions, their thousands of aeroplanes and tanks, and hundreds of warships, which imperialism will have, will be useless. Our people, our people's patriotism, its fighting spirit, and its combat morale, that is our invincible force, greater than any weapon or military technology that may exist. As we have stated to many comrades, we would apply the formidable motto of Maceo: whoever attempts to take Cuba will reap the dust of its soil steeped in blood if they do not perish in the struggle. But in this case, the enemy will not reap the dust of our soil steeped in blood, but rather the enemy will perish in the struggle. That is our reply to the insolent Yankee threats.
La segunda.
Para realizar el arte, ¿de qué forma lo vamos a hacer? Vamos a hacerlo a la inversa, o sea, vamos a comenzar a colocar la última pieza que retiramos del fusil, que corresponde al guardamano superior con el cilindro de los gases. Posteriormente unimos nuevamente
Donde nace un comunista, muere las dificultades. Comandante jefe, ordene.
¡Viva los visitantes!
¡Viva!
¡Viva el Partido Comunista de Cuba!
¡Viva!